fuck? Oh, we're live. Okay, here we go. We were just talking about some cool, fun stuff. Everyone, hello. This is Masculine Geek number 16. Welcome. I hope everyone is having a good evening. We're going to talk about some tits, wine, and incest. A little bit of Minority Report, some Geek and Tell as usual, and yeah, that's it. We usually segue into random stuff, so join us for this evening discussion and talk. So welcome. This is not coffee. This is Guinness in a one of two mugs, or I guess really pint container.
Stirring the Guinness,
yeah. Stirring the Guinness, not using chopsticks, is not optimizing the taste of this beer. This is one of two pint glasses or ceramic glasses things that I got as a gift when Fellowship of the Ring first came out in 2001. So I've kept them with me, and I drink my Guinness out of them. Anyway, so
they come in pints.
It comes in pints. I'm getting one. You've had a whole half already.
No.
All right. So, let me bring my laptop here for the chat. All right. We're going to start off with, let's do our Geek and Tell first. No, I have a Geek and Tell, but it's a little more abstract. It's something I'll be talking about. But we'll save myself for last because it's not that interesting. So we're going to go with TJ's because his, to me, is more fascinating.
Okay.
And cool.
So before I show it, I'm going to just say that I've had this since I think as long as I can remember when I was a kid. And it was one of the toys that we really played with a lot, my brothers and I. And so I later looked at it and realized it was getting old, and grandkids, or not my kids, but other kids have been playing with it. And so I suddenly realized how old it is and how it needs to be taken care of. So this is, for those of you who grew up in the 80s, you'll appreciate this. This is the 1982 G.I. Joe tank that used to have batteries and a thing. It used to have a motor that would work on. This is a very dilapidated. This is the if the G.I. Joe had actually seen action, this is what it would look like, right?
Oh yeah.
Have a couple of the treads break out. But man, we played so many. We were really into action figures when we were a kid. This was back before cell phones and even this was back before 14.4 modems. This was back when nobody had internet at their house.
Three channels on the TV that had rabbit ears.
You had you had to click each channel on it. And so you would go outside. Kids, listen, this is kind of amazing. Your older uncles or whatever, like us, would go out and take these and actually go out into the real world. And we would play and make believe war back actually in the backyard.
Did you ever take your army men, your figures, and like you'd have a friend or your brother, or whatever, and you'd sit across the room and you'd set everything up? It'd be like you'd have like your stuff, and then take rubber bands and try to shoot the other figures and knock them down, and whoever had the most standing won.
We got to chat. We can do an entire episode on the stuff that I did with plastic soldiers or action figures in terms of set creations. I mean,
nice.
So those of you who don't follow, he does Legends of the Tabletop. We did. I was on a podcast with that where I discussed my epic collection of plastic soldiers of different kinds.
That's right. Yeah, you did.
And I've recovered some of that collection.
Oh, that's right.
It was taken from me. We won't get into that. And so I was able to recover a couple of them. And so that was one of the pieces that remained, thank God, because, G.I. Joe was just huge when I was a kid. And speaking of G.I. Joe, here's the other Geek show and tell.
Wait, look at that. That's beautiful.
This is I think it's the Persian Gulf Desert Storm version, and this is his gun. Those of you who are sensitive might want to shield your eyes from
That's a huge ass dog tag too.
It's his original dog tag.
I like it. That's awesome.
And then this is the operational manual for the G.I. Joe. So I've carried this guy around since I was a kid. I can't remember when I got him. I must have been really, really young, but I've had him ever since. And so, yeah. And I'm going to talk a little bit about why I'm getting more and more sentimental with some of this stuff and why I'm holding on to it very carefully after Rob's done talking about something that he wanted to say regarding a podcast I'd done recently, but also something else I was chatting with him about earlier this week. So, Rob.
Well, did you have a geek and tell before we
segue
into your?
Sorry.
And then I'll do mine afterwards, and then we'll get into the meat of the discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
So is it my turn?
It is your turn.
My turn.
It's your turn, sir.
Well, first off, I do have to say that seeing TJ's G.I. Joe guy from the Gulf War or thereabouts reminds me, and mine's in storage, but I have one too, that's actually from Vietnam, was his time era, because he's got the full beard. He kind of looks like you, TJ. Same kind of haircut too. So, but he had the M16 and he was wearing the jungle camouflage is what he had. I'm going to have to see if I can dig him up. But anyway, my geek and tell is soap. Okay. What is so special about this bar soap? Well, I made it. I've been making soap for over, what year is it now? It's 17. I've been making soap for about close to 10 years now. I originally thought about it when I watched Fight Club for the umpteenth time and seeing how Tyler Durden were making soap. And I decided to go out. Well, you know, he is Tyler Durden. And so this was the book that I bought. And there's all kinds out there. This is the only one I've ever needed as far as how to measure it out and all that. Some of the other ingredients. Yes, kids, this is lye. This is the real deal here. And
that's no lie.
No lie. Yes, it is a lie. I mean, it is lye. Couple of the Pyrex glasses or mixing glasses that I mix the oils and the lye solution in. And the other thing that I could grab real quick and easy, whoops, start a fire in the house, is the scale that you can weigh everything on. You need a tare function for it so that you can weigh it out so that you know how much to add when it comes to the lye.
It's interesting you say that. What is a tare function? I've seen the TAR weight. What is TAR weight?
What it basically means is you take like one of those Pyrex glasses and you put it on the scale and it'll weigh it with, just as the empty mixing glass. And then you hit tare and it'll zero it out, but it remembers the weight of the glass. So that way, when you start adding ingredients, you're only getting the ingredient weight. So you're getting the water lye mixture in one, and you're getting the oils, the different fats that you're using for the other one. And so if you guys ever want to get into that, you need to make sure that that's one of the things you have is a scale that, I mean, if you're wanting to make, say, 20 pounds of soap, which is a lot of soap, you'll need a bigger scale. But I do about 2, maybe 3 pound batches when I do them. And there's a couple different methods of doing them. There's what is called cold processing and hot processing. Hot processing is very similar to what you see in Fight Club, where they're literally cooking it on an oven. I use a slow cooker for that. The difference between the two is with hot processing, you can take a mixture of fats and oils and lye and go from this caustic, goopy mess to completely usable soap where it's not going to burn you or cause any kind of a reaction within probably 4 to 8 hours, depending on how big of a batch. Where cold processing, you're taking that goopy mess and you're letting it sit, and it'll take anywhere, again, the smaller amounts, like if you're doing a half pound of soap or something, it might be good within a week and a half, 2 weeks. Mine is typically about 6 weeks before I can use it. But the texture and the coloring comes out a little differently. Like this bar of soap here, this is cold processed. This took about 6 weeks total for it to, the whole thing. It was a big old batch that I cut into chunks. But I've had that for over a decade. It's just as effective, if not more, than commercial grade soap. And when you start breaking it down, you can find calculators out there that'll tell you where you can not only break it down by ingredients as far as what you need to mix with what, but you can also break it down and find out how much it's costing you. Like if you wanted to sell handmade soap, you can break it down and find out how much your ingredients are costing per bar of soap. And this bar of soap, if I remember correctly, for the ingredients that I spent, this turned out to be, I believe, 15 cents.
Oh, wow.
Is what if you were to break it down, like, what did that cost you? That was about 15 cents for this bar of soap.
And that's sort of a basic unscented bar of soap.
This is a total basic bar of soap.
Okay.
There's a couple different types. I do have what are called super fats in it, which is multiple types of oils. There's olive oil, there is coconut oil, and then there is castor oil in this bar of soap. The super fatting of a soap will sometimes change the texture, but it usually makes the soap harder, kind of like a commercial soap, so it'll last longer, where a Castile soap is usually one oil and one oil only, so like an olive oil. It's real basic, real easy to make, but they tend to be very soft that you can literally kind of squeeze them apart in your hand.
Oh, okay.
And you will go through them very quickly, washing your hands, using them in the shower, whatever you're doing with them. But I think of all the money I've saved over the years making my own soap. And it's fun. It can be a little dangerous because you are playing with lye and it can get to very high temperatures very quickly. And it can volcano and do some other things if you don't have your temperatures right. And if it spatters on you and you're not wearing, like, say, I don't know, safety glasses, you get it in your eyes, that's a problem, considering it is a chemical burn. And so at that point, flushing your hand, your eyes, whatever got touched with that lye solution, you have to use vinegar for that. You're not going to use water. Water actually accelerates it, makes it worse.
Wow. So if you inadvertently got some of the lye in your eye, I know that rhymed, you need vinegar?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
you're literally going to rinse your eye out with vinegar.
Wow.
Or if you got it on your hand, you got it on the top of your hand or on your palm or wherever, it's not an acidic reaction, it's an alkaline reaction, but it will cause a chemical burn. What you see in Fight Club is a little exaggerated with Edward Norton getting the burn on the top of his hand. Of course, Hollywood would want to make it, a little more dramatic, but it's similar to that it can burn, and rinsing it off with water is actually going to make it worse. You have to use vinegar for that.
Oh, wow.
And so I keep like a 2-gallon bottle of vinegar on hand just in case I get it on myself. And one thing I've learned about it too, where it is so caustic, I've had it spatter on me before. Luckily it didn't get in my, didn't get on my skin. It didn't get on my face or my eyes or anything, but it got on my shirt and I didn't think much of it because it's not acidic. Except when I washed my shirt later, yeah, it's soap. Except it actually ate part of my shirt.
Oh, shit.
So, yeah, it destroyed a t-shirt of mine. Not that it was a high-ranking t-shirt or anything, but it actually ate holes where the spatter had gone.
Oh, wow. So you've got the gloves, you've got goggles, and you have like maybe an apron or something, or an old
Yep.
t-shirt. Okay.
Yeah, when I first started it, I was really paranoid about it. So I had the safety glasses, the full face visored mask that you could pull down, the gloves that were to, mid wrist. I had an old apron, and then of course wearing like an old expendable shirt. As I've gotten better at it and gotten more comfortable and kind of know what it will and will not do, I've kind of foregone the full face shield now. Maybe that's not a good thing, but I have dropped the full face shield. I'll still wear the safety glasses because I just don't want that shit in my eyes. And the apron is if I think about it, but otherwise, if you do it right and you don't rush it, you're not going to have any problems, because I never had any problems.
Gotcha.
So that's my geek and tell, is 10 years of making soap.
Okay. Any plans to do different versions of that, like maybe scents or yeah?
I could. That's one thing I have learned about it. When I first got into it, it was right around the same time I met my ex-wife, and she actually really got into it. She was making whipped soaps and soaps that had all kinds of different designs and smells and colors. And I've realized that when you start getting into like the scents, you are getting into essential oils at that point, because that's really about all that works. And when you're dealing with a lye mixture, the scents either sometimes will just get overwhelmed and you won't have any scent, or you're having to put a ton of essential oil in to get it to smell even faintly like whatever you're trying to do. You know, you're spending a lot of money on essential oils, because we spent a lot of money on essential oils. And we've even had a few where it reacted in some way and the smell was it was horrible.
Oh, wow.
And same with colors. They're kind of hit and miss. I've used, you know, food colors like what you'd make for like your cakes or whatever. And like red seems to be kind of okay. Your darker colors like blues tend to work out okay. But you get into some of the other ones like a pink or something. I've had them turn out orange. I've had them turn out yellow. And you won't really know until you start mixing them in, and then it'll pretty much be like an immediate reaction. Or the real fun one is you mix it in and it doesn't react. It's green. Okay, I'm going to have a green bar of soap or a green batch. But then you let it sit to cure, and 2 weeks later you look at it and it's brown. It's like, what the fuck? What happened to my green? But it's the reaction with the lye.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so for me, I've kind of been like, this is natural colored soap. This there was nothing added to it to get that color. That's kind of just the way it came out. And
I like that. Yeah.
That's pretty consistent with about every batch I've done is pretty close to that color.
I noticed the ridges. Is that
was the
what
cutting
you laid it
tool.
on? Oh, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I have it's like a silicone mold that you can actually was originally designed to make bread in. And you know, it's kind of like a trough, and I'll just pour the mix into that trough, basically into that mold, and then let it cure and go and check it every few days to make sure it didn't seize up. And seizing up is where the lye and the oil mixture is off. And usually what happens is the oils don't mix, and so it ends up separating. So now you've got this oily mess floating on top of this caustic goo. And it'll destroy the whole batch. You know, however much you made, it's toast. You're throwing that out. So you do need to be pretty precise when it comes to measuring the amounts of oils versus the amount of lye solution. If you're off too much one way or the other, you're going to get some kind of, it's either going to seize or it's going to be really caustic that it never kind of loses that chemical edge because you got more lye than you have oil. But this basic, the Everything Soap Making book actually has like all their own recipes that are, some are pretty advanced. A lot of them are basic, and then that's kind of the ones I've always stuck with. And it's worked out really well. You can put sand in it, and so it's kind of like lava then. So you can, you know, scrub your nails and shit like you would after working on axle grease.
Oh, you can exfoliate with it.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
Cool.
totally.
Okay.
There's all kinds of things you can add to it, you know, depending on if you want it for an aesthetic look, if you know, if you're wanting to add some stuff to make it harder, or if you want it softer, or if it's more of a moisturizer. Yeah, I guess you could do pheromones in it as a possibility. It's funny thinking of what Tony just put out there with pheromones in the soap, since there is a company that does that. It reminds me of when it was probably about 20 years ago that there was a company that put out a cologne and a perfume called Realm. And I still have the bottle somewhere. I don't know if it's any good or whatnot, but supposedly that cologne had human pheromones in it and was supposed to be, you know, you're going to be able to attract the opposite sex with it. And it's funny seeing that now we have that is claiming the same thing. And yet my experience with it was I didn't see any noticeable difference between me wearing that stuff and attracting women, or me wearing just a totally, you know, cologne or nothing at all. And, you know, my results didn't really change. It's like, oh, they're either attracted or they're not.
I thought it was supposed to work 80% of the time every time.
Yes, you have to beat off the chicks with a
Right.
stick.
I mean, it's so classic. You don't have to do any work. You could just buy this product and women
And
will
walk
be drawn
around
to
and you're
you.
fine. Yes. No,
No, yeah.
no, Rob, you were talking about the curing process. Is that you have to do that at a certain temperature? Do you put it in like in a dark, like cool, dark place? What do you do?
Well, once you've poured the solution into a mold and noticed if it's gonna seize right then and there or not, because usually if it's gonna seize, it'll start seizing within a few minutes.
Gotcha.
Once you've got it in the mold, your goal then is to put it somewhere where it's kind of cool, not cold or anything like that. So like a cellar's probably too cold, or a basement might be too cold, but a well ventilated room. You put a towel over the top of it to allow you kind of don't want anything to get into it for the first, I'd say, about a week.
Okay.
So you kind of leave a towel over it for the first week. And then after that, you can go in and the mold, when you go and touch it, the bigger the mold, the more you have, the hotter it's going to be, the longer it stays hot, the longer it stays warm.
Okay.
And so like a 2-pound batch will stay warm for about a week, which you definitely don't want to be messing with it. You definitely don't want to use it. But after about a week or so, you can then take the towel off and let the air just kind of flow over it. And, so having a window open or a fan off in the corner is okay. But then as the weeks go on, you use those, there are those little chemical strips like you'd use for your swimming pool to check the chlorine level. Only this is
Yeah.
you can touch it to the soap, to the mix, and it will let you know where it's kind of at. And like I said, with a 2-pound batch, if you do it right, it's usually about 6 weeks in a cold process before it'll be safe enough that you can use it and you're not going to burn yourself or whatever. And I always would take a little tiny slice out and just kind of test it like on the top of my hand to see if it would cause any redness or any irritation. But then after that, you cut it up into whatever size you want, kind of like I did with this guy. But then you got to let these guys sit for a couple of weeks. And every day you're going and you're kind of flipping them over to let the sun, well, not the sun, the air hit each side to kind of make sure it dries it out. The drier the soap, the harder it will be, the longer it will last. And that's where I'm saying 6 to 8 weeks is usually a good guess. You might be able to use them a little sooner than that. I know I've done batches that I could start using them within 4 weeks, but I like them to be a bit harder. And this bar is one of my last ones. I'm going to have to make another batch here in the next couple of weeks. This one is actually about, I want to say 9 months old now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's been close to a year since I made the batch that this one was part of.
It's like aging cheese.
Kinda, yeah, but it's aging soap.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool,
Okay.
and it's just, I think about the money I've saved and not getting, industrial chemicals and it's better for your skin, especially if you've got kind of sensitive skin.
Someone in the chat said that about making your own soap, and you it's good for dry skin.
Yes. Yeah. And that's another thing, depending on what kind of skin conditions you may have. If you have dry skin, you can make a soap that's very moisturizing, just based on the type of oils you use. And it will be very good for dry skin. And there's other soaps that are a little more, I wouldn't say abrasive, but they're better for oily skin. And so there's some things that, the soap making books got it. You can find stuff online, because my ex-wife had all kinds of shit that she found online that was totally free, that, she, like I said, she was way better at it than I was. I just wanted to know the basics, like, how do I do this? I actually enjoyed more the process of mixing the stuff up and playing mad scientist than kind of babysitting the soap as it cures. And to use it, I enjoy using it because it's my own product. It's something of my own labor, but I don't really think a lot about it. the fun part to me is the actual, we get to mix the lye in the water, and okay, now we get to put the oil in and blend it all together and hope it doesn't blow up.
It's Mad Rob's laboratory.
Yeah, exactly. Instead of beakers, we've got Pyrex glasses,
Yep.
But that's kind of my thing. I was more interested in the chemical part of it, of playing mad scientist, than, okay, well, how did this batch turn out and how does it smell? She was more into all that and how it would look, where I'm just like, I don't care as long as it works, man.
As long as it cleans my body, I'm good.
Yeah, as long as I can wash my nutsack with it, I'm good. So
we're going there now, aren't we?
Why not?
We're going to segue into the tits, wine, and incest. Are we going to?
Why not? Whatever you guys want.
Well, my Geek and Tell is real easy because I can't show it. I know, right? Wait, what? I can talk about it. I can't show it.
Well, you can show a picture, can't you?
Actually, let me see. Hang on.
Good night, folks.
On your phone.
Yeah, we're done. It's the rated X portion. Let me tell you,
children.
That's right. Let me find. Hang on.
Parents, get your kids out of the room real quick.
Exactly.
Hide your kids.
Hide your kids.
Hide your wife. Hide your kids. Hide your wife, because they're up here raping everybody.
Oh my God! All right, so you done?
I'm done. I'm waiting on you.
Oh my God! Okay, so last Friday I finally bought a motorcycle. I've been meaning to do this. I've had my license for over a year now. I know, right?
Give it.
Yes, everyone.
Boys Club.
I've been wanting one for a while, and a friend of mine, he purchased one about 2 years ago and never rode the damn thing. And he said, "Hey, come over and take a look at it and see if you like it." And I did. And I'm like, "Wow, it's a good starter bike." It's a 2011 Suzuki Boulevard S40. It only has a few more miles now, but it started with 654. So essentially brand new. And I paid very minimal for it. So let's put it this way. If I were to sell it now, I'd make my money. I'd double my money right now. So
wow.
Nice.
Yeah, and I figured I'll ride this. It's 650. It's what was I going to say? It's very lightweight. It's perfect for me as a starter bike. And I figured I'll ride it for about a year or two, and then I can upgrade. And pretty much, a Harley, no, Edward. That's probably, for starting out. That's probably a little too much machine for me. But
and why would you want a Harley? In all honesty, they're a dime a dozen.
Well, I guess that's true too. But let's see if you
can see an Indian.
Yeah,
nice.
you can see
like
that.
a cafe racer.
It has a very retro look. It's like a greenish blue and white. I don't know. This is really not doing it justice.
There you go. That's about
it's all right.
All right. So I was tooling around. That's why I have my hat on, because I've got severe helmet head, and it's something different. And I was tooling around with that in the parking lot and up and down the street, getting used to the gear shifting and whatnot, and just getting a feel for the bike. So it's been a lot of fun, and the weather is beautiful today. It was 75 and sunny. So yeah, I'm very happy with it. I get loads of enjoyment. So that's my Geek and Tell. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. See, Geek and Tell.
I got my motorcycle.
Get my motorcycle, see? Yeah. It would probably be obnoxious after too long a time, but I think for one of these discussions, I will be careful. And that it's funny you say that. Someone was asking me if I was if
okay, Mom.
No, it's absolutely true. I appreciate it, because not for nothing, you're not enclosed by anything. I mean, you remember, you know this, TJ, in World War I, fighter pilots, it was called flying by the seat of your pants. Right. They said that because you were literally on the gas tank. Not for anything. Right. Yeah, not for nothing. Talk about nut sacks. My balls are near gasoline, and I'm on this two-wheeled vehicle with no cushion around me. I have a helmet, and I've got long pants and a leather jacket. But guess what? If I get T-boned, I'm done.
Yep.
Now I was tooling around in the parking lot. I was going up and down like it was a main street, but not heavily traveled. And not for anything, not that I'm scared shitless, but I'm very nervous. And I think I have a healthy bit of nervousness, and that motivates me to be more careful and to look around me and to be safe and not do dumb shit. So, but
Yeah,
when you think about it, you're on. You're
that motivation, you'd probably end up in an accident if you didn't have that healthy fear
absolutely.
there.
And,
Yeah.
and I've talked to other riders like, oh yeah, I'm still nervous when I get on, and I've been riding for 2 and 3 years, and I think if you don't, I don't think that's healthy or safe.
Yeah.
I think that's when I was growing up, I had a lot of adults who all coincidentally had owned motorcycles as a teenager saying, no, you don't want to get a motorcycle. It's dangerous. It's dangerous. And then I would finally talk to them and find out that they had gone 120 miles per hour on the freeway. And I was trying to explain to them, yeah, my plan is not to go 100. I'm not trying to kill myself. I'm not testing my mortality.
Yeah, seriously. I see
I
these
just want to
guys
go.
on these racers like with t-shirts on and popping
Right.
wheelies.
There's
Like,
people who are
it's
just
insane.
they're just challenging the Almighty to be like trying to defy the odds. And my whole thought was, no, I want to get a cafe racer, and I want to go the speed limit on these sort of vacant highways in my state that are just
Yeah.
not used they're old highways that are just not used, and you don't go very fast on them. So you can do a little bit of country riding. I don't like the idea of going 70, 80, 90 miles per hour on a crotch rocket when
Yeah.
I've got car. And not only that, but the idiots on the roads. I was on highway 2. I was coming back onto the mountains from the occupied zone. And everything I'm about to say is absolutely true. I'm not exaggerating at all. I'm going and I come across this corner and there's this van going 50 and a 60 on a state highway, right? So this is where you are allowed, you can go a little bit faster. And then I'm kind of waiting behind them, waiting for them to just like a spot where I can go around them, right? And what happens, I'm making this up. They actually went into it's a 1-lane road, one lane going both sides. They went into the opposite lane for an extended period of time, which I almost interpreted for a second as them saying, you can go around us. And then I went to go around them, like go down the lane that you're supposed to go on. And they immediately, as I'm halfway passing them, immediately jerk back into their lane. And I think what happened is they realized they're in the opposite lane. They're not.
Now, if you're on a bike,
right. And
done.
these people, I was just like, these people are going to get me killed. So they finally pulled over. But I deal with this every single time I'm going on Highway 2, whether it's over to the occupied zone or out of the occupied zone. I get stuck behind these idiots who don't know how to drive, whether they're from the state or not. And so the idea, and I'm in my Millennium Falcon, right? I'm in my Mercury, Mercury Mariner
with you.
Right. I got Chewy in the side seat. He's barking. We're trying to make it. We're trying to make we're trying to go light speed, and the car's not accelerating right. We got to fix that problem. Yeah. And I'm just thinking,
do you pound the dashboard when it doesn't give you enough oomph?
Yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Either that or the accelerator. But I'm just thinking that there is no way I would ever go on that highway under any circumstances, unless it was a Red Dawn apocalypse. We're being invaded by the communists, which already happened. So that's a moot point at this point. But if I had to flee, I might use a motorcycle, but there's no way under normal circumstances I'm getting on a motorcycle with these idiots on the road.
Oh,
because guess what? They kill me. My family gets a ton of money for their negligence. If I'm going to suffer, I want to profit from that. I don't want to die. And that would happen if I was in my SUV, not when I'm in a motorcycle. So going back to the point, I'm going to drive safely in a motorcycle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so people need to stop freaking out, especially when I was younger, the adults, they need to stop lecturing the kids until they find out why do you want to get a motorcycle? Because they're kind of cool. They're a cheap way to be cool.
Well, for me,
and I love them.
Well, yeah, they are cool. It's interesting to be able. It's the speed. For me, and I've said this before. I mentioned this to Rob, and I've flown planes before. It's the closest you can get to flying without being on a plane. It's amazing. And when I was taking last year, here, if you plan on taking there's a motorcycle courses you can take that are 3 days long. If you plan on doing that, for God's sake, don't do it in June, end of June, because you have to wear the long sleeves, long jeans, your boots, and helmet. And when you're riding, the air is flowing over you. It's not too bad. When you stop and you're idling, you're going to sweat your nuts off. It's bad. So that's what I did. I learned how to ride the motorcycle, and I sweated my nuts off. But as I was
consult with the Clairmeister about
sweating nuts off. When I was in a moment we're gonna get back to that large bottle of Coke. Hang on. Now, when I was doing this, I'm riding. I'm thinking to myself, why didn't I do this before? It's so much fun. Now, granted, I'm in a parking lot, and I'm still in a parking lot, and I'm going on side streets. But my plan is to not go on major interstates for a very long time. So, what the? No helmet. Oh yeah, that's what we're out. Yeah, no helmet law. Yeah, I know. I had my helmet off in the parking lot. It was very invigorating. There was no sweating. It's fantastic. Anyway, all right. So TJ, there's no sweating at all. So TJ, you had a very large bottle of Coca-Cola there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is not show and tell. It's Diet Coke. It's caffeine free.
Oh, okay, gotcha. There you go.
But it's not show. That is not a show and tell.
That's not a show and tell. No, not at all. No. It's not
either.
Yeah, it's not an official show and tell.
No, Coke. Send me $1 million by check. I'll send you my secret address to my command center.
There you go. In your bunker.
my fortress. I'm almost thinking of coming up with a name for the fortress. Fortress Cascadia or Fortress Americana. Fortress
Cascadia has a nice ring to it, though. But maybe you want to make it a little more personal and have something that's about you in there.
Well, Fortress of Bachelortude is pretty good. I like that.
That's Fortress Reese 2D2.
Reese 2D2. There you go. Fortress Reese Baca. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
That sounds. Oh God, no.
Thank you, Edward.
Yeah, kind of like Kashyyyk, only it's Woofeek.
Or something from Red Dawn would be good, but they didn't name their hideout, right? So Fortress Free America or something like that, the safe zone.
There you go.
Maybe we should just call it the safe zone. I don't know. We'll see.
That's a little vague.
Yeah, I know. That's the problem. They never call.
Well, and it's too close to a safe space.
Yeah, it's a social justice warrior-ish kind of word.
Yeah,
and I would stay away from that one.
Yeah,
we could always we could take we could do like a ask the chat about that too.
Yeah, because my plan is
have a poll.
For those, just for context, so I found this board game that's called Fortress America that came out in the *90s about Iraq invading us, which
I know, right?
And I found out Rob actually has it, but it's got this cool logo that is almost this dog tag style logo, and I thought that'd be so cool. So I've got some wood that I was thinking of painting the logo on and then putting it up here, or
cool.
maybe having it in the background or something like that.
Nice. We will play that. What we'll do is, like I said, when we do Village by the Sea, we'll announce. Maybe we'll talk a little about that later. What we're going to do in September and early October.
Yeah,
and maybe we'll
Fortress Bavaria.
I know, right? Maybe when we play that, we'll broadcast it. That'd be cool to do.
The problem is I don't actually. Just for clarification, I don't actually live here. Here's the ironic part. I don't live in Leavenworth. I live outside of it. Leavenworth was settled by Americans. I live in a town that was settled by actual Germans. So the Bavarian village tourist town was settled by Americans that they converted to a tourist town that's a fake Bavarian. My town was originally settled by German immigrants. So I actually know some of the people who descend from the original settlers. There was nothing here. I don't want to call them immigrants necessarily because that's not accurate. They were settlers.
Yeah.
They were settlers. They were settlers of Catan for my area.
Nice. Before it was a game.
Yeah, before it was a game. They were the original settlers of Catan.
Nice.
And so Fortress Bavaria would probably be my house. As much as the inside right here looks like it's a cabin, the outside you would never know. The exterior is my house is actually 100 years old this year.
Are you in the mountains?
I am technically not in the mountains. I'm in this weird spot that's in the middle of the the mountain range. So there's the hills behind me, and then there's the mountain range in front of me. So it's just, I don't know, it's an amazing place to live, especially right now. Right now is when everything's green. And so it's got this fantastic, I'm going hiking this weekend to enjoy it before it goes, because usually what happens is it gets 100 degrees, everything dies and becomes brown, and then it all starts burning up during the wildfires and there's smoke and whatever. So this is the time of year when it's really, really beautiful. We've got a lot of amazing seasons, which is why I love living here. But I'm still trying to come up with a name. Let's see if anybody's
Yo, guys in the chat, throw out a name.
Yeah, so there's Fortress Americana, Fortress America, Fortress of Bachelortude, because this is the regardless of what a certain 5'9" character is,
whose initials are Aaron Clarey.
He's acknowledged this because he can't deny the awesomeness of my house. It is
He's even said it. He really likes it. Yeah,
it's the quintessential bachelor pad. So it's got the fireplace. It's got the old 1990s entertainment center with the box TV and the VCR, because screw Netflix. Speaking of Netflix or TV shows, we want to
segue into that, and I think Rob has a little bit of a weighty discussion.
Well, we're not talking about tits and wine yet, are we?
We can say that.
Let's hold off on that. Let's hold on for that for a minute, because I know TJ was the one that was wanting to kind of talk about that one.
Yeah.
What I wanted to kind of bring up, it's kind of a hard segue, I guess. We're not dovetailing right into it.
Yeah.
But something TJ tweeted here the other day. And a little backstory first for you guys out there watching, listening. TJ did a podcast here, I don't know, a month, something like that, maybe a month and a half ago. And it was about John Wayne primarily, and about some of the social justice warriors are wanting to go after this guy now that he's been dead for fuck how long. But because he was, he said things that were racist. Okay. Well, that's kind of, where it really starts is today, present time in the present thing here. And as you guys all know out there, if you say anything or do anything that goes against the current narrative, they shame you, they shout you down, they call you a bunch of ists and isms, and it's par for the course. And a couple of years ago, you had that whole thing in Charlottesville and in other areas where we need to tear down the monuments from these generals and these commanders and these leaders from the Civil War because slavery and racism. Okay. The narrative obviously wants to erase the past. So they go after the big names, the significant players first, the military leaders, the high command, the presidents, all those kind of things. And now they're working their way down to the smaller guys, in the sense that John Wayne was an actor. Okay. And did he say some things back in the day that can be construed as racist? I'm sure he did. Who cares? Okay. Well, the narrative cares. And here's why it's kind of important, because we're going to play connect the dots. Okay. Well, because I'm going somewhere with this, guys, and it may sound conspiratorial and tinfoil hat, but I don't think it is. And it's this, okay? You start with the present. You go after people for saying and doing things that you don't approve of. You shout them down. You call them ists and isms. And then you start sanitizing the past. We tear down the monuments. We get rid of the flags. We start rewriting history. We go after the celebrities like John Wayne. And most recently, it's this Kate Smith lady that they're not going to play her national anthem, whatever it was there at the Yankees game anymore. But the part that gets freaky is why they're doing it with her. And the term that came up in the article that I read that TJ so thoughtfully sent to all of us was potential racism. Okay, they're not going after her because she did say something racist. It's because she was known to have kind of frequented with people who were racist.
No,
And
what she did is she sang. So this is where you got really ignorant. I mean, and I'm going to be really blunt on this. You got truly ignorant people or just liars. I'm inclined to say liars, because what she did is she sang some songs that were that had ethnic stereotypes in them about black people.
okay,
She sang them to, from what I understand, to black people. And so she was singing a song to an audience that was receptive to the song. She was not writing a song that was, and it's exactly, this helps explain why they said potential racism, because those songs at the time to black people would not have been considered racist. But today, in the year of our freak show, the clown world, the current year, it's considered racist. And this was reminding me. So this is a book right here, and there's a chapter on the mood of America. And who is on the front cover of that? That is Kate Smith, Raising War Bonds. So, not to cut off Rob from what you were saying, but just
no, you're good.
That is, this is just how bad it is. I know we often say that about people as a joke. She didn't do anything wrong, even in any context except today's, which is why they said potential, meaning, in the future, we may decide that this is bad. So,
Okay, now there I'm going to stop you. Okay, because right there is what we're getting at, guys. Okay, potential racism. Okay, what we're talking about here, you guys in the chat, I'm sure most, if not all of you, have seen the movie Minority Report. And it's that sci-fi where they start going after people for future crimes that they haven't even committed yet. This whole thing with Kate Smith and the idea that it's potential racism. Not that it is racism, but it could be. You watch, guys. That's where we're heading. This is the primer to Minority Report, that they can look at like us and say, okay, well, you guys are not hardcore, misogynist, patriarch, sexist, racist, whatever, because we're not saying anything, but because we're a bunch of guys talking about guys' stuff that doesn't go with the narrative, we could be seen as potential sexists, potential misogynists. And so that's the direction things are starting to go, guys. And it may sound tinfoil hat. It may sound conspiratorial type of thing, conspiracy theory, but just connect the dots. They go after, with John Wayne and now Kate Smith, they're going after people who are already dead, people that can't defend themselves.
right.
And people that most people don't even know who they are, or if they do, they don't care.
Right.
When I first heard TJ talking about John Wayne, honestly, my initial thoughts was, well, who fucking cares? I mean, I know who John Wayne is. Hey, he's a dude. He's the actor. I know who he is, but initially, my thoughts when TJ was first going off is, I'm kind of like thinking, wow, you're kind of getting all wound up over nothing, TJ. Who cares? That was 30 years ago, and he's been dead for 20. Who gives a shit? But that's what the people of the narrative want us to think, because then we just go along with it until it's, well, now we're going to go after these guys, not because they said something, but that they could.
So I want to add a couple of things on top of that. Is that the one thing is, and I'm trying to think of how to summarize this. We're talking about first of all, she's not being judged, or what they're removing her song from has nothing to do with the fact that the song is inappropriate, has nothing to do with the song is not well sung. I was listening to some of her music, and she was a very good singer. And her personal character, this woman raised $600 million on her own, or with war bonds to pay for the war. So she was dedicated to her country, and she was patriotic, and she loved America. And this was, by all means, they had nothing against her personal virtues or character. All they had against her was something that wasn't even offensive at the time to people that it was ostensibly offensive about. And so people need to understand the message that this is sending to you. If you invest in this country and you spend time and energy trying to build it up and you're patriotic, it may be okay now, but what you do now could be held against you in the future. And the rate that our society is going, it might not even be when you're dead. And it was like what Rob was saying, they're going after people who are dead. Well, isn't that convenient? And frankly, if you're going to talk about privilege, people who are alive have privilege over the dead. We get to judge them. I was thinking about this for a potential book that I was wanting to write is we always our society loves to judge previous eras. What if the previous era had a chance to judge us? The past had the right to judge the future. And not necessarily a Back to the Future or moving to the future thing, but imagine if John Wayne had the ability, or Kate Smith had the ability to defend herself. It's an example of them. It's an extrajudicial type thing. But the other thing is it's just erasing the past. I think they just want to erase anything from any previous era that's not. I mean, this is the revolution. It's self-consuming. Because progress means everything that came before us was bad. Well, if you keep if you're truly a communist, it's communism. Let's just it's cultural communism, whatever you want to call it. But it devours everything that comes before it. They're like a plague. They're like locusts, cultural locusts. They come and they consume everything and they move on. They don't leave anything behind. And so that's why I really have gotten more and more attached to things like this. How long? So they went after Kate Smith and they got John Wayne. How long do you think it's going to be until this is banned in a toy store? And it's not going to be by the government. It's going to be corporate fascism. It's going to be the social justice warriors.
Well, they already did that. They've already done that with toy guns.
Right. And so... And so how long is it going to be when they ban military stuff, military toys, plastic soldiers and all that?
Yeah, the little green army men.
And
we're just talking about that. Yeah.
And like what Rob just said, nobody will complain because kids are too addicted to their phones to play with plastic soldiers. They're going to start out with things that don't make a lot of money. They're not going to go after things that make a lot of money.
Things that are easy targets. Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Right. And then work their way up from there. Because then you start painting yourself into a legal corner that you can't get out of.
Well, by the time they finally get enough power to go after stuff you do care about, that's when it's too late.
Yep.
It's like a cancer. You don't, when your doctor tells you that you have a small cancer spot, you don't say, well, who cares, right? It's a small, but it grows and it takes over the rest of your body. So you kill it when it's small. You kill problems that will spread like a plague when it's small. You don't treat it like it's this thing that if you ignore it, it'll go away. And
correct.
This is why I've really hammered away at the concept that in the future, nostalgia will be a subversive concept. Because you are not allowed to look back fondly on anything that came before today, the current day. I mean, we're talking about the current year. We're going to have a current day where what one politician said yesterday was okay, but today we've decided that that's no longer correct, and you're out of office, and they beg for forgiveness and all this other stuff. It's just that's what's going to be, and so we're not being tinfoil hat guys. The same people were saying this stuff. I'm not going to go on a rant on that stuff, but that's for another podcast.
Now that was kind of my thoughts on it though. Everyone talks about, we're in the Orwellian nightmare. And guys, no, it's a combination of really, in my opinion, of if we're going to talk dystopian novels, it's three of them rolled up into one right now. It is 1984 because everything TJ was just talking about, this whole thing with Kate Smith, everything you're leading up to, TJ, we are talking about thought crime. Okay,
right.
That's the Minority Report.
But it's even worse than Minority Report.
Yeah, it is. But that's where we're heading. And that is the, where they're wanting to change the definition of things. Nationalism now is a dirty word, where nationalism was pride in one's country was the original definition of it. Now it's National Socialism. Now it's Nazi. Okay. So we're redefining things. We're creating new words to take over. So there's your double think. There's all your Orwellian bullshit.
Potential racism. That is as Orwellian a word as you will ever hear in your life, guys.
Right.
Potential racism. We're at least, I don't know if the communists ever said the words potential counter-revolutionary activity. They just
they just shot the motherfucker.
Right. They just shot him and then said he was a counter-revolutionary. But honing on what Rob said about Minority Report, that had to do with actual crimes. We're talking about Kate Smith. What crime did she commit? And let's be honest, if she had committed an actual crime, in a lot of instances, nobody would care, because there's a lot of artists out there that get to perform now, and they committed crimes. And some of them committed heinous crimes. And so it's just, Kate Smith raises money to help fund the war effort for America during World War II. Her song's getting banned, but if you're
going after a patriot.
Yeah, but if you're a gangbanger who shot a bunch of people and you have a bunch of kids that are your kids who are going home tonight without a father, suddenly, and you do songs that are
nobody cares about that.
That's completely degenerate. That's fine. You can do the national anthem, and you can do it in a way that's insulting to the people listening to it, and then call them bigoted and prejudiced if they don't like the way you did it.
What's good is bad, and what's bad is good.
Yeah. And so, but this is why I'm really encouraging people concerning geek stuff. Hold on to stuff from the past.
Absolutely.
Because you don't know how we are at that point. You don't know what they're going to ban. You don't know what they're going to get rid of. You don't know what they're going to declare to be. I'll talk about this on a later podcast or episode, but there's some stuff that I specifically got because I knew it's not going to be around anymore. Oh, yeah. It's that stuff is not made anymore. It will never be made again in this country's history, just because of the politics that are going on. Mm-hmm. So that's why I hold on to what I have, and I would recommend you do the same, because there's this tendency to throw out old stuff. And I say, no, take it and hold on to it, and if you can, refurbish it.
Absolutely. And
exactly.
And Rob, it's the hour mark. You're on, brother. You're on, brother.
Slipping. I am.
I know. It went by fast when you talked about it.
It did. All right. Well, let me see something real quick here. While I'm taking a look real fast before I get into the PSA at the top of the hour, the other two books besides 1984 is Brave New World from Aldous Huxley. The medication, the eugenics, those kind of things. We're seeing a lot of that, especially the medication part. And the other one that fits from a production / kind of capitalist side is Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. You combine all three of them books and you have modern society today when you start looking at the different themes that are being talked about. Anyway, top of the hour, guys. I see 25 people watching right now. I'm only seeing 13 likes. If you guys could go ahead and please like the podcast, like the video. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the little bell so you get notifications so that you know when we're on next, which happens to be every Wednesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Plus, we may be going on a little more frequently.
Oh, yeah, we could talk about that real fast.
All right. Well, I'm not stealing your thunder on that one. You get to bring that up.
It's everybody. We all. I appreciate that. But all right, so we were thinking of branching out a little bit. Not thinking. We're going to do this, and I'm not sure if it's going to be more frequent than once a month, and maybe once, twice a month on a Saturday morning. Sort of a Saturday morning geek, masculine geek cartoon kind of thing. Not really cartoons, but you get the idea. Where we talk about anything. It's like a random bullshit session, and everyone in the chat can join in, and we'll interact more with the chat And that's something we've been tossing around. Oh, good, TJ. You want to add to that?
Yeah. So remember when you were kids and you got up on a Saturday and you
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
to watch
yeah, yeah.
cartoons,
I forgot about
but
that
now
part.
you want to do that, but you can't because it's a little weird. Well, now you can. You can watch us talk about stuff, either just random stuff, or we'll talk about actual cartoons from the past, back when adults could actually. First of all, the cartoons were made for the adults, and the kids were, you know, we'll throw on some stuff to make them happy, but we're going to have stabbing, shootings, beatings, and lots of other adult humor in it.
Absolutely.
And, we'll call them Looney Tunes.
Yes. There may be even what we may every once in a while we may even do one of those mystery science theater kind of things where we just throw on a movie and just bullshit about it.
Oh God, we're gonna be like Beavis and Butthead then. That's pretty cool.
Yes.
Yeah, she said hard.
And that'll be yes. So yeah, someone mentioned Edward, you mentioned that you do not get notifications. Is anyone else in the chat who is set up for notifications not get a notification regarding our posts in YouTube? Let me know. It's possible that you
check the spam.
Check the spam, see? It's possible. Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, the spam. It's also possible that because we have masculine in the title, YouTube shitlords are just going crazy.
You think we're being shadow banned?
YouTube shadow ban? It would not for nothing. It would not surprise me.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me either.
Yeah.
Stupid, unbelievable.
Because it's potential sexism.
It's potential fill in the blank. It doesn't even matter anymore.
Potential patriarchy.
Yeah. Stupid.
You know, it's funny how I'm a radio. We'll have to talk. I don't know. Have we talked about old radio shows? I think we have.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I watched when I was doing a commute. I did a 20-mile commute when I was younger, and I listened to an old radio serial with Dana Andrews called "I Was a Communist for the FBI." It's about this FBI informant who's infiltrated these communist groups, and he's dealing with all that stuff. And it's so over the top and melodramatic. Then you watch it now and you're like, holy crap, this is exactly what's going on right now.
Yeah.
And so I felt like a lot of these shows are retroactively prophetic. I don't think that they necessarily were at the time. Maybe they were, but there's this one episode where he talks about how the communists he's working with are trying to take over this actors guild and all these these sneaky tactics that they're doing, or they're trying to take over this church board, or they're, you know, just all this other stuff in the words that they use. For example, there's this one episode where he's coordinating with the leader of his cell, and she's instructing him on appropriate words to use. She goes, okay, so you're going to be emphasizing this, like no more war and no more oppression, and I'm going to be saying how we are socialists. We're not communists, we're socialists. And I was listening to that, and I think I could have sworn in one episode, I don't think she said democratic socialist, but she just said it's very important that we emphasize that we are not communists, we are socialists, trying to reform things. And I thought, holy crap, this episode is so relevant now. Probably not maybe at the time, but so yeah, it's just with everything that we're talking about. And what's such a crime is people are being judged for things that they did, like I said, that they didn't actually commit, they didn't break any laws. So and this is a question I start throwing back at people, if you can lose your job over something, if you can have something would happen to you like Kate Smith, why don't you just go all the way, be honest, stop being a bunch of treacherous, lying backstabbers, and say, we think it should be a crime? And then you say, well, you know, it's the First Amendment rights, and they could say that. Okay, so what does that mean? You say First Amendment right. Well, they're like, well, doesn't mean you should have to play. The fact that you're removing her song because of something she did that has nothing to do with the song or her performance says that you think it's a pretty big deal. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to apply that to non-crimes, then we sure as hell better be doing that about people who commit actual crimes. They don't get to perform. They don't get to play any songs. We don't hear any of their stuff, and they shouldn't get any record deals. They shouldn't be played on radio. None of that. If we're going to do that, we need to go all the way. But of course, they're not going to do that. And that they pick such a petty. I mean, we're talking about people who are, you look at Kate Smith or look at people, guys, it's going to get really ugly. They're going to go after what's next? The Andrews sisters? Are they going to go after them? Are they going to go after Abbott and Costello?
Osmonds.
No, they're going to go. Trust me, guys. Mark my words. Go out and get copies of Abbott and Costello. Mark my words. You mark this episode. They're going to go after them too, because there is stuff in some of their episodes that is not, or their movies that is not politically correct.
Three Stooges.
They're going to ban all that stuff. They're going to ban all the stuff from the 1930s.
Benny Hill.
You know what's amazing is I have a bunch of the old Disney cartoons and Disney stuff on DVD, part of their special edition, and they're from the vault. And they all come with a introductory thing with Leonard Maltin saying, these cartoons nowadays would be considered insensitive, rude, it has ethnic stereotypes. But he says, but we don't want to hide these things because of two reasons. One, these things were made back at a time when this stuff was perfectly fine. It's not appropriate to judge people according to moral standards that they didn't live in. Exactly. And then he also says, we need to be able to explain to people or show, like they said with parents, watch them with your kids and explain to them what's in the cartoon, have a conversation with them and say, this is what they used to believe. This is what we believe now, depending on whatever it is. Like if they got tobacco or alcohol, it's like, no, son, I smoke all the time, but I don't know. That's bad. I don't know why they put that in the vault, but Leonard Maltin is appealing to an intelligent audience saying, have a conversation with your kids about this stuff. Don't just ban it. But that's of course not what the party is saying. They're saying we need to ban anything geekish, anything cultural, social, anything that violates the party lines in any way or could potentially do so in the future.
Agreed.
Yeah.
As we paused, is that the Coke and rum?
It's whiskey and Coke.
Oh, okay. There's a name for that. I forget what it is.
Whiskey and Coke.
No, is there like another like secret name that only a few people know?
I mean, back during Prohibition, it would have been iced tea or something like that. Say, or so, I don't know. But yeah, so I guess do we want to talk about Game of Thrones?
Why not?
Okay. Yeah, that's the
since that's kind of the title, that's
the Tits, Wine, and Incest.
Exactly. So go ahead, TJ, fire it up.
So I'm gonna get full disclosure. I've not read the books.
They suck.
I've not watched I haven't read I haven't watched any episodes except for the most recent one. So I'm watching it devoid of context. My impression was this. It is a highly cynical show that is now completely subverted by social justice warriors. Every single girl in that episode, whether she was an old or young maiden, they had the Brie Larson mask on.
The resting bitch face.
Yeah. They were, it was just, I felt like it was a propaganda show and there wasn't any, because I don't care if anybody's seen the episode or not. I'm going to do spoilers. So they're apparently waiting in the castle for this army to approach, and they're all resigned to the fact that they're all going to die, or they're probably going to die. And so they're hanging around, they're being cynical, and they're drinking wine and doing all this weird stuff. And I was thinking about how that compared to the Two Towers, where they're preparing for battle and they're getting ready, and there's this nobility about in Helm's Deep.
There's a dignity.
Yeah, there's a dignity. The king is reciting this old Anglo-Saxon poem. And then Aragon is trying to reassure this young boy who's about to fight that there's always hope and we're going to make it and all that stuff. And I thought about somebody who was saying how the dichotomy between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones. And one of them was, they said, isn't it ironic that the author of Lord of the Rings fought in probably the most horrific war in human history, came out of that and wrote a very uplifting book series, whereas a guy who didn't fight in war wrote a series that's just full of basically just despair, from what I understand. My impression with the series was not positive. I would not want to go watch it. And I know, like the fanboys for Star Wars, I may be offending the Game of Thrones idiots who think that, it's just the greatest thing in the world. Well, I don't know. It looked like a bunch of there was the men who were all I was not impressed with, and then you had the androgynous freaks who were there as well. So it just looked like leftist politics from our current era being injected into a fantasy genre. That was my impression. But
yes, no, I read half of the first book and threw it across the room. I don't want to speak too disparaging another author, but I mean, I just could not. There's nothing resonated with me. Nothing grabbed me enough to want to continue that series. Now I've watched. A friend of mine will watch episodes. Just sit down, drink some beers, and watch Game of Thrones. I mean, the reason why I wanted to view this is when I was a kid, and you read all these fantasy novels, the few that were out. You read Dragonlance and R.A. Salvatore now, and or J.R.R. Tolkien, and all the other ones. You want to see these things brought to life, and we have. Peter Jackson did a fantastic job. I wanted to see what this was all about. Okay, and a fantasy series. This is great. This speaks to the D&D nerd in me. And from what I know, because I only read half of the one book. It's the series is a complete departure from the books. They get to the same plot, but via a different way. And I can't. I've lost interest in watching it. Just for the reasons that you mentioned. Right. The very beginning, the first season had a there's some interest, and I like that. And then as it went on progressive, I lost it. There's nothing there for me. So I don't know if anyone else in the chat has felt the same way. Yes, Dragonlance is fantastic stuff. It's nice to see another Dragonlance aficionado out there.
Yeah. I guess my whole thought was fantasy should be I don't know, maybe it's just me projecting my own concept of how fantasy should be, but it should always be there's darkness, but it ends with light, and the characters have to be aspiring for the noble, right? And you can have a cynical character or somebody who's struggling with their idealism, but you can't have those people be dominating the scene, because then it's just, in my opinion, it loses the that's the whole point of fantasy is somebody. This is why I would not consider the Arthur Legends to be fantasy, but that's what I love about the Arthur Legends is that in spite of all the cynicism, you can look at that and it's probably just as bad as Game of Thrones when it comes to the sex, when it comes to the violence. The Arthurian legends are very violent and have lots of, adultery everywhere and incest, if you want to get down that road. But there's still this nobility of them trying to aspire. Even though they failed, they're trying to aspire to something greater than what they're even capable of. And they're almost, you read this in the story, and it was even the case of the author, Thomas Mallory, who lived a very unvirtuous life for much of his life. But then he ended up...
I just picked that up, by the way, too, the Mallory book.
And he was writing this book to try to inspire ambition and nobility among the English people. And so I've read this series, the original series, and then I've read adaptations of it. And even though it's changed in terms of the morality, the personal virtues of the characters, some of them, there's one version of the Arthur Legends I've read where Lancelot and Guinevere don't have an affair. That's faked by or as a result of a rumor by Mordred. He's spreading rumors, and then through happenstance, it's believed he is, but he didn't. I thought that was actually a much more effective story plot, because it adds to the tragedy of that. He was always Arthur's friend. But throughout those different versions, there's still that sense of nobility. They're trying to create this round table and create this kingdom that's just based on peace and justice and true law and all this other stuff. And it's fallen apart through just infighting and all that. And it's a tragedy. It's a genuine tragedy and a fatalistic one at that. But you read the book almost inspired when it ends. You don't feel depressed, because it also ends on almost a biblical note, because in the original version, or maybe not the original version, but in other versions, where Arthur goes to the island of Avalon but the prophecy is that he will one day return to rule as King of England during a time of great trial.
Yeah.
And so it ends on that note where he'll come back when he's most needed. So I've read all that other stuff. So that's the difference between that and Game of Thrones, in my opinion. I'm saying I watched one episode and I wasn't really impressed with I didn't hear or see anything where somebody was trying to explain why what they were doing was noble or what they were trying to do was of a loftier ambition. It seemed like it was like the Dirty Dozen, right? it was the Dirty Dozen in medieval time.
It's a postmodern fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Everything's relative and nothing means anything.
No.
So, your thoughts on that, Rob?
Well, I've read the books, all of them up to this, to what he's most currently written. And I guess I'm one of the lemmings or the sheeple that I've seen Game of Thrones from the very first season up to the current. It's definitely fallen apart. It's definitely gotten more propagandist, I guess, or more. It's definitely pushing their narrative harder now than it did in like the first season or two. I'll be honest, I enjoyed it, at least in the beginning, because of the tits and wine. Seeing, a bunch of hot chicks with their boobs out, and I'm watching people bang each other. It's porn. And that didn't bother me. I was like, that's why I watch it. Me and the ex-girlfriend used to joke about that she's like, why do you watch Game of Thrones? I'm like, for the tits and ass. Why do you watch it? She goes, for the dragons. Because she was a big fan of the dragons.
Which don't show up for a long time.
Yeah, but when they did, she was all about that. In fact, in last season, when one of the dragons got killed and the Night King got it, she was devastated when that happened. And I'm like, you realize dragons aren't real, right? These are CGI. They don't even exist. These aren't even, living beings. And she's like, shut up. I don't care. But she's into it for the dragons, where I was into it for the tits and ass. And when they stopped, or when they decreased the tits and ass, I started kind of losing interest. But I will say, to be a little bit on the defense for Game of Thrones to a certain degree, they do have some really cool quotes, I guess, because I've wrote a few of them down. Some of them people are going to recognize, some of them they won't. One of them, of course, I'm sure most people who have ever watched it, was "The night is dark and full of terrors." I've always loved just that saying because it just sounds so ominous that it's just like, Jesus. Can you imagine you're out, oh, TJ, what you doing? I'm drinking my rum and Coke. Rob, what are you doing? Telling you, TJ, the night is dark and full of terrors. Careful going into the occupied zone, TJ.
It was a dark, cold night.
That's right. Be careful going into the occupied zone because the night is dark and full of terrors, But then, there's a couple other ones that stood out. There's, you are the few and we are the many. And when the many stop fearing the few. That was the head sparrow, whatever his name was, talking to, I don't remember if it was Jaime Lannister or if it was Cersei, but he said that to him. And I thought, wow, talk about, not only take it out of context of the show, guys, we are, they are the few, the ones that are creating the narrative that we're dealing with today. They are the few and we are the many. And when the many stop fearing the few. And then the guy went on to say, who are we? We have no names, no family. Every one of us is poor and powerless. And yet together, we can overthrow an empire. So those were some of the stuff that, a couple of the things I remember hearing when I was watching a couple episodes. And I was like, God, those are actually pretty good. Never mind in some kind of fantasy TV show. It's like, think about it.
to be sure, I did hear another quote. It was from the dwarf or the midget. I'm not quite sure what
That he's the god of tits and wine.
the foreshortened people. But there was a line where
Bacchus.
he said, when you cut out a man's tongue, you don't make him a liar. You just prove you're afraid of what he has to say.
Ooh,
I thought that was a pretty good line too.
That is a good line.
So
yeah, and he was also the one to say, "I drink and I know stuff," or "I drink and I know things," something like that. But yeah, no.
There was another line. Winter is coming.
Oh yes, there's always that one. Well, now winter is here. You know. And it's just like, everybody calling everybody else a bastard, the bastard Rob Stark, or Jon Snow, and the bastard this, Bolton's bastard.
They just want to say the word bastard.
Exactly. That's why do you think I'm doing it? It's gratuitous.
Boston.
Hey, you're bastard.
Eaton is saying that Game of Thrones is middle class porn.
Yes, it is.
It's like someone else mentioned, and it's true. It's
that's what I find so
a fantasy
funny.
Soap opera.
Yeah,
right.
It is.
It's funny that there's people who actually are denying that. Like, oh no, it's good. It's
soft porn.
It's like no, I did. Again, I watched one episode that was, I think, edited or something like that because I didn't see anything in this episode.
It's too offensive.
Well, I just didn't see anything. There was no violence in this episode.
There was no violence and there was no TNA either. No, this one was a boring episode.
No, so, but there's been debates over this stuff, and I was thinking, yeah, dude, but it's got incest. So, like, if you're not like, what do you think this? Like, what is this? It's funny to see people actually try to justify. Okay, guys, this is why I have box TV, VCR, and VHS tapes, and maybe some DVDs. I just got a huge collection of World War II movies that are on DVD, but I just don't watch it. Again, everybody can do what they want. If you love something or hate something, whatever, but I'm more inclined to, I guess this is what bothers me about all this stuff. It's like if you have that relative who's got to watch sports ball on Thanksgiving, on Christmas, and on New Year's, and it's the same thing with, oh, dude, Game of Thrones is on tonight. We have to pause everything else in our life and we got to watch this show. Thinking, wasn't TiVo invented 20 years ago or whatever? Like, even back when I was a kid, like 4 years old, you could record a TV show on your VHS, right? That's how you recorded all the homemade, the home recordings of stuff on TV. And so I'm just just the fact that you have to watch it live, it just has this 1984 cult. Like, we've got to watch the you know what it is? It's modern day church. You have to watch the sermon live as your overlords are delivering the moral lesson of the week. Yes. This is your new morality. And you even watch that in some of the shows like House. I watched House with my buddy and I liked it, but it got to the point where I understood they are propagandizing a degenerate or just alternative, degenerate communist lifestyles, guys. That's just what it was. It was communist lifestyles. And we were being lectured. These are lifestyles that you're going to accept, you plebes, you bourgeoisie. So this is why I don't have cable at my house. I like to be able to watch TV shows that I want to watch on DVD and not feel like I got to watch it live. It just feels too much like some sort of weird modern day religious thing where you got to watch the football game. You got to watch everything's got to be watched live. You can't go back and watch it after it's played. And I don't know. I just gave up watching or following any of this stuff. I don't know.
Oh, come on. Wapna's on at 4. Wapna's on at 4.
What?
Rain Man.
Oh yeah, gotta watch.
Wapner's on at 4. He'd fucking flip out if he couldn't be home in time to watch Judge, the People's Court.
That's true. Don't forget the underwear. Don't forget your underwear from Kmart.
No, but you guys should definitely tune in to watch us live on Saturday morning, so you can get your adult dose of cartoon.
That you need to. That's church for everyone. That's Geek Church.
Yeah, you tune in, and we will give you we will make you feel like a kid again.
Yes, if we haven't already.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, good saying shit like that. Yeah, see. If no one knows what that's from, go to Google, go to YouTube, and type in Racketeer Rabbit, Bugs Bunny. I think it's 1946, and you'll know what I'm talking. There's Peter Lorre. What's his face? Not James Cagney.
Edward G. Robinson.
Edward G. Robinson. Yeah, it's fantastic.
If you're also
talk like this, see.
Well, if you want to watch the original version, go to YouTube, type in Little Caesar, and then like film clips, and there's going to be the one clip where he's talking like that, and then you got the cop who's talking in this really slow. It was nice to see you, Rico. You should have come to John's stretch party or whatever. He's talking really slow because that's the way they told him to talk for the cameras back then. Whereas I think Edward G. Robinson didn't listen to him. He's just like, "Hey, you flat footed cop, I'm gonna come after you."
Yeah, it's like he's like very frantic in his. Give me the dough, see?
Yeah,
I want what's coming to me.
Same with James Cagney.
Mm-hmm.
While you're at it, watch Monty Python too.
Yes.
Well, wait until
look at the bones.
Yeah, wait until they ban Monty Python.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and God knows what they'll. Who knows what they'll ban them for?
Fuck! Take your pick.
Well, but it's stuff that it's. I don't know.
What? You don't know what?
Well, no, I'm trying to think of stuff that would. Well, here's the thing. It doesn't offend them today, but it'll offend them tomorrow, right?
Well, I can already tell you, Life of Brian will get banned for the fact that, you know, who are you guys? Are you the Judeans People's Front? Fuck off. What? Judeans People's Front? We are the People's Front of Judea. Judeans People's Front. And whatever happened to the Popular Front? He's over there. Splitter! You watch. That's why they'll go after Life of Brian. That or the myrrh, you know. I don't bring any of the myrrh, you know. Something like that. Or I'm not the Messiah. I'm not the Messiah. He who says he's not the Messiah is the Messiah. I am the Messiah. He is. Now fuck off.
Shit, that's true. Yeah. Would not surprise me. That'll be a sad day indeed. So save your copies of Monty Python and everything else.
Well, yeah,
that'll have to be one of the movies that we watched all together.
Oh, absolutely. They call me Tim. Look at the bones.
Is it behind the rabbit? No, it is the rabbit. Jesus Christ!
You silly son! You almost made me soil my armor.
What's he doing, nibble your bum?
You know what the funniest thing is? When the rabbit attacks, you see the string that it's attached to zipping up the line. It's fucking fantastic.
Fuck. Or the Black Knight.
Oh, yeah.
Off your arm? No, you didn't.
It's
just a flesh wound. Oh, you liar. Come on, you pansy. All right, we'll call it a draw.
You got no arms left.
What are you going to do? Bleed on me?
I'm invincible. You're a loony.
Come back here, you yellow bastard. Yeah.
My favorite part of that show was later on when they're doing the lines and they go, yes, get on with it. Yes, get on with it.
Oh shit! It's
very
just
lucky.
Fantastic.
Oh my gosh! So I'll have to show a picture from Ireland where my buddy and I were driving through the Irish countryside. We look over at this one castle and keep. I was surrounded by a swamp, and we both look at each other like, "The Castle Og. Our quest is at an end."
Oh, good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, we'll add that to the movie list. We'll have to.
We got to throw Life of Brian and the Holy Grail on there.
Mm-hmm.
Brave Sir Robin, he bravely ran away. Shut up. I did not.
No, we'll have to also go through at some point the different cartoons from the old era that were. I was talking about this with someone my age about how intelligent some of those old cartoons used to be.
They were definitely they're not made for children.
Well, they weren't made for children, and they had classic movie references that kids, not only would kids today not get, but I think it was. I almost wonder if Pixar was trying to fill in that gap because I think at a certain, I mean, even if you watch cartoons from the 80s, they're all based on movies. They're based on movies that came out either during that time period or prior, some of the Disney cartoons like Tailspin had a bunch of episodes that were based on these film noir or these 1930s sort of Indiana Jones films. And that was when I was watching with my little cousins, I was like, wow, this is, you wouldn't, as an adult, you would get them, but as a kid, you would not get them. So, but especially with the Looney Tunes stuff, I think also the humor, like Daffy Duck kids might find him funny, but also adults might find him funny too, because he's so hyper.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas now they're like, oh my gosh, he needs to be medicated. He needs to be given Ritalin,
Yeah.
That's hyper masculinity.
And that
Yosemite Sam, geez.
Yosemite Sam, yeah.
Oh no, there's Foghorn, Cappy's favorite, Foghorn Leghorn. I say, son, there. I keep throwing you. You got a hole in your glove, son. I keep pitching them to you, and you keep missing them.
Yep. That boy's about as sharp as a sack of wet liver.
That boy's got more nerve than a bum tooth.
So good. And I actually mentioned Daffy Duck, that the one episode where he and Bugs Bunny were trying to they took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, and they wind up in the Himalayas, and they're the abominable snowman, and the abominable snowman is Lenny from Of Mice and Men, not the rabbit, George. I love the old classic book references.
And then there was also the Small Giant Vacuuming Company in Walla Walla, Washington.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm from Washington State, and so hearing Walla Walla, Washington being brought up in a cartoon was really funny. But I've talked to people from around the country, and they go, "I didn't realize there was an actual Walla Walla, Washington."
Yeah. There's a lot of history, and like you said, movies and literature and all those old cartoons.
Company in Walla Walla, Washington. Just walks in, walks
there you go. Susquehanna Hat Company. Talking about Abbott and Costello.
Oh, Abbott and Costello. I'm gonna pause because I have 30 of their films, and I've watched them all. And some of their films I want to talk about on a different episode. That'll be my Geek show and tell for another episode, is showing off the movies, but also talking about them, which ones you should watch, which ones are really not that funny. They're just kind of recycled jokes from previous films.
All the movie monster ones are good.
Movie monster ones are good. There's a couple of ones that are good, but also you got to understand with Abbott and Costello, the films were really just pretext for them to tell their jokes.
Mm-hmm.
So the jokes really had nothing to do with the film. It was almost like a comedic performance in the middle of a completely separate film. But they're still pretty funny. And also, as you get older and you watch these films, you understand that they're taking place in the 40s and 50s, how different the time period was. And how, especially a couple of the films I was watching them, and was just struck by how different the time was. So again, this is why they're going to ban nostalgia, or they're going to make it subversive, because if people look at the past at any point and they see something that is better than what's now, like they're going to say, people might start getting ideas. Maybe things that we're doing right now isn't as good as we used to do, and that's
seeing things that they don't like, or they get offended. They're not. It's not enough that they're offended in the here and now. They're worried about shit that happened in the past, and they're being offended about.
Right. I'm a future, potential social justice warrior.
Yes, I'm worried about how potentially offended I'm going to be at some shit that hasn't happened yet.
So, if you guys have not seen Dr. Zhivago, I have the movie, I have the book, I've read the book, I've watched the movie. If you haven't done either, you need to do it. You need to watch the film, because there are scenes in that film that are going to give you a good idea of what to expect if things keep going on its current trajectory. And it's probably a healthy attitude for you to just be prepared for it, even if it doesn't happen. There's just scenes that are so pertinent to. An example of this is where the main character, Dr. Zhivago, has come back from the Russian front during World War I. comes back to Moscow, and he's ready to go back to his job at the St. Edward's Hospital. And the communist commissar informs him that it's been renamed to the Second Reformed Hospital. Because the communists, when they took over, they started renaming everything. Because you can't have anything that's named after a saint, and you can't have anything that's named after anybody that came before the communist period, because it's only moving forward, comrade. And, the personal feelings and his poetry are suddenly subversive. They were great during the Tsar era, but now they're petty bourgeois and personal. So watch the film. It's got great music, and it's got a very beautiful actress in it.
When did that come out? The 40s or 50s?
No, it came out in the 60s.
60s? Oh, okay.
I believe, because they released the book and then they immediately did a film on it within a couple of years. And it has Alec Guinness, it has Omar Sharif, it has Julie Christie, and Rod Steiger. I mean, these are powerhouse performances.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite films.
Someone's mentioned. I'm bringing it up because I know you're an aficionado of the old Bond movies.
Oh, he says,
yeah.
Okay, I got to be honest. Diamonds Are Forever was an okay novel, Bond novel. It was the worst James Bond film I've ever seen. I mean, if you're going to look at Bond films that sucked, that is
the suckiest.
It's one of the suckiest, because Sean Connery, I'm going to tread lightly on what I say. Sean Connery aged after a certain time period where he aged very rapidly. And then he was in this weird, between Diamonds Are Forever and, say, his older films, he was in that weird transitory phase where he wasn't a young man, but he wasn't he didn't have that mature look anymore. So if you watch the film, Sean Connery doesn't quite have it anymore. And that's at the point where he grew the mustache that you see in A Bridge Too Far. And he does that he's always had facial hair ever. Oh, well, then he did Never Say Never Again. That was, in my opinion, a crappy film as well. But you have a cheesy Bond villain. You have a cheesy plot. You have, I was not a fan of the redhead, who's the Bond girl. It was just a very slapstick. And then you got the two gay guys who are the villains, and it's just so stupid. It was such a stupid film, in my opinion. If you're looking for classic Bond, I think From Russia with Love was a great film. Goldfinger. Okay, this is where Cappy and I need to have an actual debate. He's convinced that Goldfinger was the greatest Bond film, and my argument is it's the most iconic Bond film without question. It's not the greatest Bond film because the ending is a little weak, in my opinion, and it just falls short of the greatness. If you also like, I think that For Your Eyes Only was one of the best Bond films, because that had spirit to it. It was just such almost, it was based on the plot and story. There was no gadgets, and it had some stuff that's it's a little silly. And if Bond had been in his 30s instead of in his freaking 40s, pushing 50, I think it would have been the best Bond film without question. I think now it's debatable. Because I don't know, you just watched For Your Eyes Only, and I remember I watched it when I was in 8th grade, and I was just amazed with everything in it. So it was a great film. But I did a podcast series on the Bond films. So if you want to,
that was good. Yeah.
Yeah, let's see what somebody said. Oh, You Live Well, Scaramanga. Yes, The Man with the Golden Gun. It's one of those films that was crappy, but I still liked it. It was a crappy film, and but Christopher Lee was a good villain. I thought he did a good job.
Always
and
is.
Then, of course, you had Nick Nack, right? But it just wasn't a very good fit. It wasn't done well. This is when the partnership between Harry Saltzman and Cubby Broccoli was starting to fall apart, and then it finally fell apart when they were about to make The Spy Who Loved Me. But you can see that in Man with the Golden Gun. Roger Moore's films, a lot of them are fun to watch. They're just either stupid, or they're kind of cheesy, or they're just not very Bondish. Like Live and Let Die, great film. that is totally a 1970s what do you call it? Those films that were really focused on
Blaxploitation.
blaxploitational film disguised as a Bond film. And it has a drop dead gorgeous Jane Seymour in her like early 20s, and she is just raw. She's beautiful. So if you want to know what she looked like back when she was young and for her age, she's doing for an AARP guy, she would be, for one of you guys, she'd be fine.
Jesus. Hey now.
Hey now. But I'm trying to think of what other. And the other thing, guys, is if you haven't seen the Timothy Dalton movies, especially The Living Daylights, give him a shot. I think Timothy Dalton is the most underrated Bond because he's at the time. You got to understand, people were used to like the same thing with the or was it the Batman, the 1960s Batman,
Adam West.
They were used to that. And they were used to Roger Moore's kind of slapstick Bond, even though he tried to move it over. And then Timothy Dalton walks in with his Bond that has this look of, I am a 00 agent. I will kill you and don't screw with me. He was one of the Bonds, along with Daniel Craig, that I could see villains genuinely being terrified of this guy because he has that borderline psychopath, not psychopath, but just psychologically, he has that edge, like the edge that is needed to kill someone unarmed in cold blood. I don't really get that vibe. Sean Connery kind of, but he has too much charm.
Too much of a gentleman.
Roger Moore is the playboy who happens to kill somebody accidentally while he's trying to seduce a girl. And then you've got Pierce Brosnan, who kind of has.
He was okay.
He did a good job. If he walks into a room, you kind of get the impression that he's a country club gentleman. I call him the country club gentleman Bond, where he could sit there and he could order a drink and he'd seduce a girl. He's not the guy that you would expect to completely just destroy an evil organization. Daniel Craig has that kind of look where he'll blow up an entire building just to get rid of one guy. Like he has that look about him. And also, is he going to ditch a girl that he's, been hanging out with to go pursue a mission or something like that. So that's my thoughts on Pierce Brosnan. GoldenEye was good. I thought Tomorrow Never Dies actually was retroactively is a relevant movie because it came out at the time when newspapers were on the demise. The internet hadn't quite come out yet. And so I still thought it was interesting that it's about a media Mongol trying to control the news in that sense.
Yeah.
But Daniel Craig, it's been kind of a disappointing run. He did Casino Royale, which was good. I thought Spectre was okay. But the Sean Connery ones up through, I Thought You Only Live Twice was a little too cheesy. They got out of hand. They needed to be reined in, but they didn't. So that's my thoughts. Listen to the podcast. And if people really want to have the debate, I will defend my critique of Goldfinger with a thorough, merciless. I will also have a martini in hand while I do it. I might also, we can also see who can bring the cutest girl, but that's if the challenge is thrown down.
So you're throwing the gauntlet down.
If the gauntlet is thrown down, we'll see what happens.
All right, guys, you've seen it and heard it in the chat. TJ's throwing down the gauntlet.
He's throwing down the
bring
gauntlet.
Bring your Bond films and be prepared because the man's dug in.
Yep. And you'll probably lose.
Oh.
No, not you.
Oh yeah. Oh, the 5'9" guy.
Whose initials are Aaron Clarey.
Yeah.
If you're listening, Aaron, we love you.
We love you, Aaron.
If you're listening, when you listen.
You crazy son of a bitch, you.
By the way, guys,
down taking notes.
Just to give a shout out, I thoroughly riled up Aaron this morning by sending him a link to a local tech event for the ladies. and he got so riled up he ended up doing a live stream impromptu, and so you got to listen to it. It's pretty funny. I was not able to join in personally, but
he also has issue with you being Han Solo.
Well, you're not
okay.
Han Solo. I'll agree with Kathy on that. You are Luke Skywalker.
Come on. I don't need no power converters. I already got them.
Got your own damn power converters.
Yeah, exactly. No, I'm Han Solo. I got my.
But I wanted to go down to Toshi Station. Go down with your friends later.
I've got my furry sock co-pilot.
Oh, you mean Reese 2D2? Yeah.
And I got the piece of junk that makes 0.5 past light speed occasionally.
Yeah, whatever. Did the Kessel run and 13 parsecs?
You know, so yeah, no, the guy who'd be whining would be the one who's trying to get out of an area. I'm trying to stay in my area. So I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. We'll have to, if we got a youngin, you know, and I'm also at Han Solo's age. I'm in my, early 30s. Han Solo was in his early 30s. So we need a youngin who can come in here and whine about his life.
Well, out of us older guys, you are the Luke Skywalker because you are the youngin.
No, you're the old Jedis, you know, the 900-year-old guys. Yes.
Jesus Christ. Oh fuck.
I'm just saying. And I also got the jacket, not the Han Solo jacket, but
there you go. You don't have the blaster or the jacket.
It's in the mail. It's coming in the mail. Not the jacket, not the gun.
I have that blaster, that toy blaster.
I've got the real blaster.
What?
Well, I don't have a Mauser because that's what the blaster was based off of.
Oh.
I've got other cooler blasters.
Yes.
Oh, you mean that one that's
Oh, well, we could show this off 1 second. It's not the real blaster, but 1 second.
Oh, but it's a real blaster.
That's what she said.
This is a Oliver Johnson revolver. This is the same. It doesn't work. It's the same revolver that was used to kill. Oh, it didn't kill Garfield, President Garfield. His idiot doctors killed him. If they just left the bullet where it was, he would have lived. But this is the same revolver that was used to shoot him. So I got this for $80 at a gun show, and it was covered with rust. I restored it. In the butt, I was opening it up to clean it, and it came out with this note written by a guy in the 50s who was retired. It had his address, his name, the unit he served in World War I, and when he had seen service. So this apparently was used in World War I.
That's cool.
So I don't think the cartridge is for sale anymore, but it's a cool little pistol to have on display in the war room. I thought it would be fitting to have a weapon on hand.
It is, absolutely.
It'd be kind of hard to have a war room without some war weapons.
Yes.
Yeah, we gotta have the tools. The tools of the
trade.
Yes, indeed.
So
this is true. All right, we are coming up on the time flew. I know. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark. Is there anything we want to wrap up with that we haven't talked about?
If you guys haven't subscribed, I just would encourage you all who are listening. If you like what you're listening to, you can really help us continue this by letting other people know that you think would like it, encouraging them to subscribe or at least watch our videos, and if they like it, continue following us on Wednesday nights. And we're providing content that you're not going to see elsewhere in the format that we're doing it at, because you're going to hear geeks talking about this stuff, but they're not going to be talking about it from a masculine perspective anymore.
Exactly.
You've got people who've essentially adopted the feminine imperative. They've internalized it, and now they're articulating all these different interests from that perspective. So when the social justice warriors converge on something that you love, and your favorite guy who talks about this stuff is going to totally buy into it. He's like, yeah, it's great that we've got this female warrior Thor, or this female, Brie Larson, she's kick ass and all that other stuff. And you're thinking, no, she's another Mary Sue Skywalker. She's ruined the series, and she's probably going to ruin Endgame. Which is, by the way, why I'm not going to go see the film in theaters. I had the opportunity to do so, and I'm not going to do it because I'm tired.
No ass.
but
Yeah. That's a huge thing. I mean, come on.
I think that
Yeah, you look at a picture of her and the kid that played Spider-Man, and they look the fucking same.
So I guess the point is that what I'm trying to get at is I'm not going to go watch this film because when Brie Larson came out with that crap about white men, she did not get pressured or feel pressured to issue even an explanation or an apology by the people who made these films. And so I'm not giving them my money. I'm going to wait for it to come out in the library. The library is the new Blockbuster. I'm going to go get my videos for free from there, and I'm going to watch it when it comes out on my TV. I don't need to see these films on big screen that badly. I can watch it on my old 1990-ish box TV because I'm not a little slave to their desires, but I'm not giving support for people who hate me. So in that sense, if you guys like what we're doing and you want to support us by doing a few things that don't cost you any money, as opposed to throwing money to these dirtbags who think that they're so entitled to your support and that they feel like they own you so much that they can do this kind of stuff, and you're going to go be the little slave and go buy a ticket and watch it. We have to stop doing this. We have to stop doing this where we try and rationalize this crap and then go see
start
another
voting
movie.
with our wallets.
Yeah,
Right.
vote with your wallets.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
Otherwise, if you pay for it, basically what you guys are saying is, "Thank you, sir. May I have another?"
Yeah, you're endorsing it, and you're
endorsing the hatred against
you're bending over without a Vaseline.
Yep.
You're like a girl who calls the police on your abusive boyfriend and then refuses to file a police report against him.
Oh, that's right. That was the Tool Up episode.
Yeah, the Tool Up episode. You're the girl who gets tooled up by the boyfriend, and the police get called, and then you refuse to testify against them or file a report, so the police can't do anything, and then he tools you up again, and you're like, "Why doesn't anybody do anything about this? Why does he hate me?"
Yeah.
Well, why don't you testify?
Remember, people, don't tool anything up. Boycott.
Except your car.
Except your car, yes.
Yeah, so guys, stop watching content created by people who hate you and are in your face about it, right?
No, they're not. They're no longer subtle. It's completely in your face, and they want your money. And they're like, here.
And the positive.
They're saying, "Fuck you, pay me."
Yeah,
right.
I'm gonna treat you like shit. Pay me.
Now the challenge and where we rise above just the whiners and complainers and all that stuff, and this is the positive note that we should probably end on, we should see this as an opportunity to create good content and art in the form of books. If there's people who don't like what they see with movies, that's a little bit harder, but
not as hard as you would think.
I think that at the very least we can start with books because they don't cost anything. Necessarily to make. It doesn't require as much. You just write. It requires time. But if you want to do like comic books, graphic novels, art, all this other stuff can be done. We've got to start countering this stuff by creating, and not art that's propaganda. You can do some that's just a counter narrative, but we have to create art that is it's art reflecting values, not values reflected in art. That's Thomas Kincaid paintings and Hallmark Channel movies and every single most cheesy religious films where it's this sort of it's just not good art. We need to create something that people will feel drawn to, even if they don't like necessarily the politics of the creator, because they're drawn to the beauty of it. So that's our challenge. Is that as they're destroying stuff, we have to go start building new things, because complaining about it and whining about it. Here's the thing. We've warned what's going to happen so that people are aware of what's going on, but now we need to go create stuff. This is exactly what got me into writing in the first place. I saw there was not good writing going on. There was not good characters. So I created my own, and I'm going to continue to do that in my capacity. I'm not an illustrator or a painter or a graphic person. I'm a writer. But everybody if you don't like what you see and you like creating art, you need to see that as an opportunity to provide an alternative.
Yep. Same here. And you're going to see a lot more of what we're talking about being, what is this? Being generated by Masculine Geek. So stay on board, keep watching. join the newsletter. That drops every Monday. You'll hear more. You'll read, and you'll get content that we don't talk about on these shows. So it's not reused, it's not recycled, it's novel content, and it's something from each of us. So every Monday morning, dropped in your email box is something from all three of us. So go on to our website and sign up for the newsletter. We don't spam you. It's just once a week. Start your week off right with Masculine Geek. And Rob, do you want to say something about the your spiel?
Oh,
We're
doing that. We're doing the end credits here now.
Yeah, it's almost we have 1 minute to 11.
Oh shit. Okay.
Get it in there.
If you guys are interested, I know each one of us, in addition to doing Masculine Geek as the Three Musketeers, we all individually have our own things going on. You can find me at robsays.net. If you go to the contact page, you'll see where my Twitter is, my YouTube channel, all of that. I primarily talk about a lot of red pill stuff. I know I drop at least one post a week, sometimes 2 or 3, depending on how creative I'm feeling. I do at least a video a week, a podcast a week, plus being on with these fine gentlemen here. So robsays.net, you can find me there.
TJ? You want to?
So you can go to tjmartinell.com. That's going to be my website that'll have all the links to my different stuff. But if you want to go directly to my weekly podcast, I've just finally moved over to YouTube for that. So you can go to soundcloud.com/tjmartinell, and then also Amazon. I've written a bunch of books that are available there. The Stringers, The Informers, The Redeemers. That's part of a single series. And then there's Men Who Walk Alone. If you're looking for a masculine themed book that has old-fashioned masculine men, pick up Men Who Walk Alone. At
yes,
least.
I can attest to that.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Yeah.
Go in there and order that. You can get, you just said that if you order the paperback, you get the ebook free.
Yeah,
right?
and if you buy the paperback, you buy the paperback, you get the Kindle version for free. And so these are books that I wrote in response to not seeing these type of characters in print. So if you want to support artists like myself, this is a good way to do it.
Excellent. All right, that'll be it for Masculine Geek number 16. We've already mentioned all we had to talk about.
Are you going to mention your site there, Vince, or what?
Oh yeah, I did forget my site. I always, I hardly ever promote myself. All right, that's my first novel, Tisla and Malone, Lightning's Call. It's cosmic horror. It's book 1. Book 2 is finished. I'm almost finished the editing process, working with my book designer, and that will be out this summer. I have 3 other writing projects. I've mentioned this before. I have 3 other writing projects in various stages of completion. I tell people I write how I read. If you were to come through my apartment and bedside table, and you just see books everywhere. I'll read a chapter, or maybe I'll take notes, and then I'll move on to something else. I'll read a chapter, take notes. I do the fiction the same way. So I need to focus and finish one of the other book projects. But the second book will be out soon. Go to vincelarosa.com. You can also go on Amazon. Just type in my name. You'll find my book. And there you go. So that's my promotion for this evening. Anyway, we are done with Masculine Geek episode 16. We thank everyone for joining us. We enjoyed chatting with you in the chat. And as always, have a good evening. And until next time, we'll see you soon.
See you guys.